Good morning and welcome to the 41st Annual Winter Star Party.
Hi, I'm Richard Wright. I'm here at the 2025 Winter Star Party, and my talk is on the past, present, and future of astrophotography. So I've always liked these memes, how it started, how it's going, so I thought that would be a really good theme for the Star Party for astrophotography. And we might talk about a little bit about where it's going as well. A little bit about me, because there's always some people who don't know who I am. And I'm used to having presenter notes and I can't get them up, so I'm sorry. Lifelong astro guy. Specialty is computer graphics and GPU technologies. I did a little stint about 20 years doing astro full-time for Software Bisque and actually Starry Night. I worked on Starry Nights, the Sky, and Sky Safari, which are, I think, the top 3 astro software programs, so I'm pretty pleased about that. I did step back from astronomy full-time to go back to a high-tech company. My wife was getting very tempted to murder me in my sleep before my insurance runs out, so that we can get my, retirement going. But I still do astro. Now it's just my side gig, and I am also a contributing editor at Sky and Telescope. So I kind of have like 3 different jobs. 2 of them are astro-related, and 1 is technology. But that technology comes back to astro because astrophotography is imaging and that sort of thing. And so that's stuff that I know how to do. If you want to follow me, like and follow, blah, blah, blah. I'm Accidental Astro on Twitter, formerly X, or X, formerly Twitter, whatever they're calling it these days. I do have an astrophotography showcase at eveningshow.com. And Accidental Astro, where I occasionally will blog about software engineering topics, and they're usually kind of like astro related as well. And I do have an email, I'll write at eveningshow.com. It is okay to email me. And also, I have over 50 beginner blogs on skyandtelescope.org, skyandtelescope.org/astrophotography. And there's a lot of useful things there, and it's free. And of course, I write for the magazine all the time, so you should buy the magazine. That would be great. Subscribe. We like that. So astrophotography is less than 200 years old. It's actually 180 something years old. The exact number is in my presenter notes. Did I mention I don't have my presenter notes? This is actually the second photograph ever taken of the moon. The first one was very fuzzy, taken in 1840, and was destroyed in a lab fire. A few years later, a French guy, Louis Daguerre, I had to click that little thing, pronounce that for me. Daguerre, I've been practicing that, so you should be impressed. He took this photo of the moon, 11-inch Clark refractor, all right? Who does imaging of the moon right now? About how long does it take an image of the moon? Just one picture. Tenth of a second, maybe. With a heavy filter on it. 40-minute exposure to get an image of the moon, all right, a little over 100 years ago. 40-minute exposure to get an image of the moon. Another guy, chemistry professor, a few decades later, he managed to take a photo of the Orion Nebula. This was about, I can't remember, it's like an hour or so, all right, exposure. And so if you think your Orion Nebulas are awful, all right, you're doing way better than the first guy, so don't worry about it. Now, about a year later, I wanted to show you my first Orion image, which isn't going to show up very well. It's almost as bad. I literally held my DSLR up to an eyepiece on my Meade LX200 and took a real quick picture, and I yelled something, and my wife came out the door and said, "What? What's going on? I thought you were being murdered or something." And that's when the zombie virus got into my bloodstream, and you're doomed after that. Anyway, this guy, Henry Draper, he took some PixInsight classes and watched a YouTube video, and he did a little bit better on his next attempt at M42 about a year and a half later. So before long, we transitioned to glass plates, and they were the state of the art for a long time. In fact, it's really funny if you read some history books. The visual guys were like, if you want to do real science, you need an eyepiece. These photographic guys are just, you know, it's a flash in the pan sort of thing. But photographic plates were the state of the art for a very long time. This is a photographic plate of the Andromeda galaxy that Hubble saw the Cepheid variable, and just found out that the universe was actually much bigger than we thought it was. I always feel the need to point out that Henrietta Leavitt discovered Cepheid variables, and she is the one who figured out how to measure distance. And I'm sorry, I am going to be political, sort of, but if she'd been in the kitchen making sandwiches, we still might not know how big the universe is. So, women in astronomy, good thing. I was set up there's a plate glass archive in North Carolina, and we were at, I think it was an Alcor meeting, Astronomical League meeting, and they were set up next to me, and they were showing this glass plate with these two little galaxies interacting each other. And I'm like, that's really cool. You know, it's very tiny. I'm going to write down the NGC numbers, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to take that picture myself. And I did. This picture was taken in March of 1977, just a few months before Star Wars was in the movie theaters. This cost millions of dollars of equipment to take, and about 15 years ago, I took that in a field in Okeechobee with a Celestron telescope and a CCD camera. So we've come a long way. And when you think about, well, I tell you what, in the 50s, there were probably people at conferences going, well, you know, this process can't get much better. I mean, astrophotography, we're at the peak. Well, what if, no, that stuff is a flash in the pan. So don't be that curmudgeon and go, well, astrophotography today is like, it can't get any better. It can, and it will. All right, so a little bit progress occurred over the course of decades. It's funny, we've had film rolls since the late 1800s. Eastman Kodak had rolls of film in the 1800s, and that ruled for a very long time. And film only has a quantum efficiency of about 2%. Now, this is not a Star Trek episode, so I'm going to tell you what quantum efficiency means. It means, like, light is made, how many of you know, okay, wrong way. Does everybody know what photons are? Okay, they're the torpedoes they shoot out of the Enterprise. All right. So light comes and it hits the film, and let's say 100 photons of light hit the film, and the film counts 2 of them. That would be 2% quantum efficiency. So very little of the light is detected by the film. On the other hand, your eye has a quantum efficiency of about 15%. So you can see things much better than film could. When you see those movies where they're taking the photo and they have the big flash, and the people used to hold still, which is why that picture of your great-grandfather is like that, because he's trying to hold still for a long exposure to get all that light, and they had that's a long exposure and a flash. It's too bad we can't like flash a deep sky object to make it brighter, right? And then we could get a quicker image. Your eye brain can integrate for about 1/10 of a second. And what that means is a good mentor of mine once said, you don't really see with your eye, you see with your brain. And your brain is like literally kind of stacking images, and you can stack for about 1/10 of a second. And after that, you can't see it anymore. So that's kind of the limit of human vision. CCDs, when they came out, we'll talk more about CCDs in a minute, they had a quantum efficiency of 50%. That was an enormous leap forward. You could put a camera on a telescope with a CCD sensor, and it outperformed vision, it outperformed film, it outperformed glass plates tremendously. And of course, this revolutionized astrophotography for us. Eventually, CCDs had quantum efficiencies close to 99%. I did have I used to teach and had a lab assistant, and when he was in college, he worked on a project that was counting photons. And so apparently he was working on something where it was nearly 100% quantum efficiency. But if you had deep pockets, or an institution or a government power, you could get a CCD that could detect almost all of the light falling on it. There were some popular consumer CCD cameras in the 95 and plus range too. So CCD cameras were invented in the late 60s, 1969. And they were started being used in observatories in the 70s. Consumer cameras were made with CCDs for quite a while. I was surprised Apple ever made a camera. I don't know what that word is. That's just a typo. And then Espig and Mead, which are household names to most of you over a certain age, they also made CCD cameras in the 1990s. And that was, you know, all the rage for a while. I want to point out that long guided exposures have been a thing for a long time. All the way back to those glass plates, all the way back to that moon image. The very first moon image was fuzzy. And maybe it was a good thing it was destroyed in a lab fire. It spared him, you know, the embarrassment. But it was a very fuzzy image. It was either out of focus or his tracking was off. So, you know, I bow down to the people who stood looking through the reticle with a joystick in their hand and kept that guide star centered. But Espig came along. They were the first, you know, commercially successful auto guider. And you would have a second camera that would train on a star. And if the mount drifted a little, it would bump it back the other way. And that way you could do long guided exposures. And you needed long guided exposures because there's very little light coming down into your image. And so in order to build that up and get a nice clean image, you need a really long exposure. And you just can't expose and track for 2 or 3 hours. I've got a whole nother talk about that. Sorry, I'm rushing through that. All right, CMOS. CMOS actually predates CCD, which is surprising. But it was terrible. And it was terrible for a really long time for types of photography. It started getting a little better in the 80s and 90s. And if you were doing outdoor photography in a bright area, CMOS cameras worked really well. And they were very affordable. They had faster readouts, so they were better for video cameras and things. And they consumed less power, which is also really good for portable devices. In the early 2000s, they really became more mainstream. Webcams, digital cameras, cell phones, all of those things started using CMOS technology. For astrophotography, by the 2010s, CMOS was very popular for what we call lucky imaging. Because CMOS is so fast, you could take hundreds or thousands of frames per second. Yeah, maybe not thousands. Let's just keep it at hundreds. You could take hundreds of frames a second of something like the moon or Jupiter. And you know how they bounce around. How many of you do lucky imaging? You know what I'm talking about. All right, so quite a few of you don't know what I'm talking about. Who doesn't know what I'm talking about? Lucky imaging. I was telling a female coworker about that once, and she thought I was being fresh with her. All right, I'm not, because it is about getting lucky. Imagine taking a photo of a fish. In fact, I was doing this just the other day. I was trying to take a photo of some fish in the water, and the water is bubbling around. And so that image of the fish is doing all this sort of thing. The atmosphere does the same thing. The atmosphere is all bubbling around, and when you're trying to take a really high resolution image, when the magnification is really high and you're looking at Jupiter, people who don't do astrophotography, they're often very surprised, aren't they, when you talk to your family and they're like, wow, what magnification is that? And it's like, well, it's actually about 6 full moons across. You just can't see it because it's dim. So things are most of the things we shoot are actually quite large. But when you want to shoot Jupiter at a very high magnification, that thing is going crazy because of the atmosphere is all dancing around. So what we do is we want thousands of images of Jupiter and then go through all those images because the atmosphere, every now and then, just for a second, it's still. And then it moves around a lot, and then it's still. It's kind of like a child, right? I'll be still, honest, and then it's moving around. So if we take enough images, we'll get lucky. And some of those images, the air is really still, and we'll get a nice, crisp image. And then, of course, the more higher state-of-the-art is we take a whole bunch of those images, find just the still ones, and we'll combine those. Planetary imagers do this, lunar imagers do this, solar imagers do this all the time. And there's a whole sub-market for high-speed cameras to take that, and they're all CMOS based because the CMOS is so fast. And so even though the CMOS cameras were noisier than CCDs, because of the amount of bright signal you get from, say, the sun, All right, that amount of signal was really drowning out the noise, and we were in good shape. Now, oh, by the way, this was one of my first cameras made with a webcam, and I thought I'd show you my very first Saturn image taken with that webcam. All right. So, here's this slide is actually from a presentation I did a couple of years back. I don't know how to break this to you, all right? But the truth is, nobody cares about us, all right? The successful astro camera companies are successful because they make cameras for other people. And they're like, oh, astronomy is cute. That would be fun. And that's why they're doing astronomy. And if they're not doing that, they probably aren't making enough money to survive. Because all of the other markets, security cameras, traffic cameras, let's just get through all of that. That industry is gigantic, and we are a blip on the radar. So don't ever say, you'd make so much money if you'd make an astronomy camera. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. There's not enough of us. But there are 6 billion cell phones in 2020. I've not updated this, but I bet it's more than 6 billion now. And every one of those phones has a camera in it. Now you tell me how many astrophotographers there are versus how many cell phones there are in the world. And if you're making image sensors, which market are you going to care the most about? The best we can do, the truth is the best we can do is we ride on the back of the life sciences companies, because the life sciences is very important because it's bigger than us, and also it saves lives. And astrophotography is fun and it's beautiful and it's enlightening, but it doesn't save lives. So a lot of cameras that we use for astrophotography, at least in the CCD world, were originally life sciences cameras for taking photos through microscopes and taking pictures of people's bodies and things. Yeah, $345 billion was the size of that market 5 years ago. More than that now. So in 2018, I gave a presentation called The Changing of the Guard. And it was about the transition in astrophotography from CMOS to CCD. And there was, at this point in time, I mean, 2018 is not that long ago, there was still a lot of pushback to CMOS is not as good as CCD yet. And people are like, oh, CMOS is just as good as CCD. And so I gave this presentation, I said, almost. There's still, so what was going on is CMOS was cheap. And people like cheap cameras. And CMOS was getting good enough that you could get some pretty good images. And when you can get a pretty good image with a cheap camera, that makes a lot of people happy, all right? But the truth was, CCD was still better than CMOS in every way, except of course it was very expensive. And I talked about linearity and amplifier noise and all these sorts of things. And most all of that is now sort of, you know, at this point in time, if you've got one of the top Sony sensors, you're doing better than you would do with the top CCD sensor, you know, at the time. In fact, only like I think Teledyne, and there's only a couple companies that are still making CCD sensors. CCD sensors are still useful for a lot of things, special things. They work better in high radiation environments, so they're good in outer space, and maybe they'll make a comeback for handheld cameras after the nuclear apocalypse. But we are finally now to where, okay, in general, there are affordable CMOS cameras that are better than affordable CCD cameras. Okay, so that's where we are. Everybody kind of knows that today, but you know, but that doesn't mean go buy a cheap CMOS camera and expect it to be really good. So there's also a lot of garbage on the market still, CMOS wise. In the end, they both look the same, right? So nothing has changed for us except the cameras have less noise, and they're more sensitive, and everybody's happy. Oh, okay. So the current state of the art. This is what I think the current state of the art is. I know everybody thinks the state of the art is the C-Star. C-Star is really cool. We're going to talk about that. Don't worry. But I think this is the current state of the art for high quality deep sky astrophotography. You have a CCD or a CMOS camera. There's still a couple of really top CCD cameras that are still very serviceable. Don't let anybody on YouTube tell you to go get rid of your CCD camera if you're getting good results with it and you're happy. We can talk about chips and things later or over a hamburger or something. But an equatorial mount so that you can track and get long exposures. An auto guider also so that you can get long exposures. Autofocus so that you don't have to fool with focus. And then, you know, scope-mounted computer has become the thing these days. Right before, so I worked for Software Bisque for a couple of decades, and they would tell me that when they went to the first advanced imaging conference, they said, so you put the sky, and they had a program called, you know, that did imaging, they put that on a laptop, and people were like, you're going to put a laptop next to a telescope outside. And that was the result, that they were laughed at for that. But everybody, a lot of you here know that's very common. It's still very common. But putting a computer on the telescope is really like the new thing because the computer on the telescope draws much less power, especially if you're trying to go somewhere dark to take images. How many of you are on the Girl Scout side running on batteries? Yeah. You know what you can't do on the Girl Scout side? Run an imaging rig with an Alienware laptop all night long on a battery, all right? My first experience, I had a MacBook, and I bought 2 or 3 extra batteries for it, and I drove to someplace in North Carolina, and I'm like, I'm going to swap batteries. And it was a disaster. A, you have to stop everything and swap batteries and then start over again. B, it was really, really cold, and the batteries, you know, didn't last very long. And so I'm like, hey, what's this little tiny computer called a Raspberry Pi? And it draws very, very little power, and a very small battery will run that all night. You do not need a lot of horsepower, computer-wise, to tell a telescope where to point, and every 5 minutes download an image. You don't need that much horsepower. You need horsepower for PixInsight, all right, but you don't need that to run a telescope. So this is the state of the art. I feel like this is the state of the art. This is where we have gotten to with high quality deep sky imaging. A nice real optic on a real mount with a small computer on it running things. Now, along at the same time all these other revolutions with cameras were going on, computers were changing. And this is the computer revolution. This is a Raspberry Pi. I think it's a 1, it might be a 2. But I showed this at NEAC, the Northeast Astro Imaging Conference, in 2014. We had the Sky from Software Bisque running on it, and we were controlling mounts, and we were controlling cameras, and we were doing auto guiding with it in 2014. So that's 11 years ago. And this little thing was awesome, because I could go anywhere with a little battery that I could carry, and it would run my whole imaging rig all night long. And even had a little, actually you had to put a USB stick in to get Wi-Fi. It didn't even have Wi-Fi built into it. Just about a year later, I was at the Nebraska Star Party, and that's a Raspberry Pi 2 or 3. And I was demonstrating at the Star Party. I said, this is the future of astrophotography. And a lot of people were like, yeah. And a lot of people were like, no, it's not the future. Nobody's going to want to run their whole astro rig on a box that big. Surprise! This little box that big is like one of the top selling astro, things in the world. Maybe we'll change that in a few months. But Prima Luce actually was first. They had the Eagle in 2016. Now the Eagle is a much bigger box, and it's power distribution, and it actually runs Windows. What are you going to do? They're Italian. But a lot of people like that. I have an Eagle at a remote observatory. There's nothing wrong with Eagle. Don't misconstrue. I just like to make jokes to keep you awake. But they came out with the Eagle in 2016. Stellarmate, this is a new Stellarmate, but in 2017, they were like, hey, this whole put the sky on a Raspberry Pi is a pretty good idea, a little bitty computer. And they put together some open source software, and they started selling that all the way back in 2017. This predates the ZWO ASI Air by another year. So ZWO, they're Chinese. I'm not going to say anything bad about the Chinese, but they do like to copy things, and they got a really good idea. And I will give them credit. They've executed really, really well on this. Ideas, so as a product developer, I like to tell people all the time, your idea is worthless. It really is. Ideas are so worthless. If you have a good idea, I'm happy for you. You're human. Everybody has a good idea at least once a day. They really do, and you're included. Executing on that idea is what is so daggone hard. That is where the money is made, not because I had this great idea first. And they, ZWO, they get a gold medal on execution with the ASI Air, and most of you know that. That is simply the easiest astro-imaging thing on the market today. Lots of other people are making boxes. A friend of mine makes a little box. You put your own pie in. There's Astroberry. There's all sorts of things now where people are putting small computers on the telescope and running it. And so, yeah, that's pretty cool. This is what I'm gonna skip this slide. That's an inside joke for some of you, but yeah, I'm gonna skip that slide. All right, so where do we go from here? Optics are crazy fast. Several years ago, I invested a great deal of money in an Officina Stellare, 8-inch f2, the Veloce. And let me tell you, I was 16 years old with a Ferrari, and I would bring that thing to the Winter Star Party, and all the girls would come running. All right, they'd be like, "Ooh, you've got one of those Veloces, f3, that's amazing." You know, nobody cares anymore, right? Who's like, "Ooh, f3." We got Rasa at f2. I have at least 3 scopes at home that are f3 besides the Veloce. The optics have gotten faster, right? My favorite Milky Way lens, f1.4, 8 seconds on the Milky Way on a tripod. Milky Way, nebula, everything is there, everything I need, because the optics have gotten fast. So the optics are crazy fast. The cameras are almost to the point where they can't get any better. What are we going to do when there's no read noise? There's no pattern noise at all. The cameras are going to be like at 100% QE, more or less. The process can't really be, the process we're using can't really be for any further improved. I mean, you can't make the Andromeda galaxy any brighter, right? There's nothing you can do to do that. So, well, we'll improve guiding, and guiding will be turnkey, and we'll eliminate periodic error, and we'll do all these things. These are only marginally improving the current process, but the current process is running out of steam because, like I said, there's nothing you can do to get more photons onto your thing. So what are we going to do? Oh, this was my prediction too. Auto guiding for long exposures will be dead soon. Sneak peek, my talk at NEAC this year, the Northeast Astro Imaging Conference, is called Guiding Needs to Die. And so you can come and hear my talk about why guiding needs to die. So, yeah.
That's what you want, to be challenged.
Yeah, guiding needs to die. All right, so this is I have this magazine and I loved it. I took this picture and I'm going to use this in so many presentations because the future does not often look like we think it is. All right, in the 1980s, they're like, what are you going to wear? What's it going to look like when a computer is on your wristwatch? Well, it's going to look just like this. Nobody in 1980 was thinking about how this was going to work. It's just like, you're going to shrink down the display, you're going to shrink down the keyboard, you have a little bitty floppy drive. It's not going to be practical. And every time an engineer hears somebody go, well, that's just not going to be practical, it's just like, yeah, you have a very lack of imagination, because we'll find that problem can be solved. We'll find ways around that problem, just give us time.
Can we get the Super Bowl on that?
Does that say
Probably.
31?
What's, no, that was 81. Yeah, you've got good vision. Yeah, 1981. So, all right, here's your new term, computational photography. This is computer-based astrophotography, your new term for the day. You're welcome. Let me just go ahead and bring all these up. Is there one more? Yeah. So this is where computers intervene during the photography process. So, you know, traditional astrophotography, you spend all night collecting data, and then you spend all day processing that data with Photoshop or PixInsight or whatever. But what if the computer was helping as you were taking the data? And you're like, ooh, that's an interesting idea. That's far-fetched future stuff. No, that's going on right now. It's been going on for years. Every time you use autofocus, that's basically computer-assisted photography or computational photography. The color balance coming out of your camera when you take a photo with your cell phone or with a point-and-shoot camera. When you're doing auto-stitch, my Lord, if you're not an engineer, you have no idea how impressed I am when I can go, take a panorama, and I do this, and it stitches the image while I'm moving. You are not nearly impressed enough at what a feat that is, all right? Some of the other gray-haired guys in the back, yeah, that's some serious stuff going on right there. So we've been doing this already for a while. Maybe we should apply some of this to astrophotography while we're imaging. And by the way, if you think what comes out of the camera is more honest, all I can say is just laugh. This is a constant debate with my wife and I. She's like, well, you do all that processing. Even when I take a picture at the zoo, she's like, you know, we have to wait for you to process the image. And it's like, that's because, trust me, the camera is processing the image, and I think I can do better than the camera. And that, I may be right or wrong, but I'm not wrong about the fact that the camera is processing the image. This is what a raw image of a parrot actually looks like. When you bring it into your Photoshop RAW or Adobe RAW, it looks like this because it goes, oh yeah, that's a raw image and it's off a Canon camera and it looks awful. Let's make it look pretty. But this is what it would actually look like if you didn't do any processing. And actually I had to brighten this up because of something called bit depth, which I won't talk about. So in truth, what comes out of the camera wouldn't even hardly be visible at all, much less look like this side of the image. In the old days with film, I got time for a tirade? Yeah. In the old days with film, you would take your film to the store, and you know what they did? They processed it, right? They processed it. And if you wanted really good results, you went to a good place where they had lab technicians who knew what they were doing, and they would process it better. And if you were really good and you were really serious, you built a darkroom in the house and you processed your film the same. So, what's changed? Not a dang thing. It's still the same process. It's just digital now instead of chemical. All right. So, this is the other buzzword. This is the new hotness in astrophotography, live stacking. It's already here. My cell phone will do it. The iPhone. I love going out at night and taking photos, and it'll say hold still for 3 seconds, and it takes a whole bunch of images, it aligns them, and it combines them. That's exactly what you're doing in PixInsight when you're stacking your images, your astrophotography. And the phone does it while you're pointing at the object. Why does it take 3 hours to do it in PixInsight? It's another thing. But live stacking has been around for a while, where you'll take short images with your Astro camera, and it will download it, it'll align it with the previous images, and automatically stack it for you. And you can see that image develop before your eyes as the noise goes down. Technically, it's not going down, but as the image becomes cleaner and cleaner, you see it sort of develop in front of you, and that's really nice. And we've got lots of things on the market that are doing this. Unicellular, C-Star. How many of you have C-Stars? Okay. Actually, I thought it would be more than that. There's a lot of C-Stars. They're selling a lot of C-Stars. I mean, a lot. So now I'm going to talk about stacking just for a minute. Little tech stuff. So this is one image. I don't know how good this looks to you on the screen, but one image has all this fuzzy stuff. Okay, that's noise. This particular type of noise called shot noise. Shot noise is one of many types of noise you get when you're doing photography. It has to do with how much light you're getting. The less light you get, the more grainy the object looks. That's called shot noise. I'm going to use that term a few times. I think that's probably a good enough explanation. If you take a whole bunch of noisy images and you combine them, you get a cleaner image. The shot noise goes down and you can see more nice smooth detail in the image. That's what stacking is. How many of you didn't know what stacking was before now? Okay, so I just wasted 5 minutes. All right.
Okay, me.
All right, thank you.
I'm kidding.
Thank you.
I've heard him say something.
All right. So here's a graph that I see all the time, and this is just a pet peeve that I can't let it go. It's kind of like at every funeral, the guy at the end wants to tell you how to get into heaven because it's just such an opportunity. You're thinking about death, we got to talk about that. And I'm talking about stacking, I just have to talk about this. So I see this graph all the time. All right, the noise goes down, the square root of the signal. This is called the square root. It's that thing they were talking about in math when you were passing notes. All right, and they go, the more images you take, the less noise you get. And after about 12 images or so, you're not really getting any improvement. How many of you have heard that? Yeah, all right. How many of you think that's true? What's this word? It doesn't even look like number of exposures, does it? It says signal. All right, so I've come up with a really good analogy that even the people who failed math can understand. All right? When I was 15 years old, I worked at Burger Chef, and I got paid every week. Now, as an accomplished professional, I get paid once a month. Doesn't that suck to get paid once a month? Wouldn't you rather get paid once a week? I promise you, there's more money in my bank now than there was when I was 15 years old. So what's more important, the size of the deposit or the number of deposits? It's not the sum of, it's not, I made 8 deposits. I have more than enough money to buy a nice house, right? It's how big this is not the square root of the number of exposures. It's the square root of the amount of signal that you're getting. In this image, the signal isn't even uniform across the image. It's really bright right here. You got lots of signal. So the signal to noise ratio, which is what they call that, is really high right here and it looks nice and smooth. Over here, it's not quite so bright. And so you got to take a lot more images to get the signal up, and then it gets nice and smooth. Down here, it's very noisy. Anybody's Horsehead Nebula 20 years ago had a beautiful horsehead, and it was all dark down here. All right? You should be embarrassed if that's what you're doing these days. The cameras are so sensitive. Everybody's Horsehead Nebula has all this cloudy, dusty things down here, because the cameras have gotten better and they're less noisy, and we get better signal to noise ratio, and we can see more detail. And it's not because we're taking more exposures than we were 20 years ago. It's because we're getting better signal from our cameras, and that's what it is. It has nothing to do with the number of exposures. Okay, so the next slide is to show you how this sort of really works. Your signal goes up linearly over time. You're collecting data, and as it goes up, the noise also goes up. So both your signal and your noise go up at the same time, but the signal goes up much faster than the noise does. And so we get that ratio starts to grow, and you get a nice, pretty, smooth image without a lot of noise in it. Yay. Down here, you'll see the noise is actually higher than the signal. Yikes. All right, so how do we do this? We take really long exposures. Who's taken a 4-hour single exposure of any deep sky object? Okay. So what we do is we take lots of little exposures, 5 minutes, 1 minute, an hour with the guider. I've seen people take an hour exposure. It's crazy. Somebody bumps them out, it's gone. And we combine that, we stack it, and we get the same equivalent exposure. The signal noise thing works. Yay. Well, so are you telling me, Richard, that if I take 60 1-minute exposures or one 60-minute exposure, I get the same signal to noise ratio? In theory, yes, you do. In theory, if you make 100 1-penny deposits, you have $1 in the bank. If the bank charges you a penny per transaction and you make 100 1-penny deposits, you have no money in the bank. And so what keeps this from working infinitely well with really short exposures, like a second or a half of a second, is the noise sources from the camera. Not the shot noise. Shot noise is the photons raining down, but the camera has inherent noise as well. There's a whole talk about that. It's very complicated. I'll spare you. But that noise from the camera and the electronics is what keeps you from being able to do 1 second exposures. But here's the thing. The noise in those cameras is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So the amount the bank is charging you for your deposits is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which means we can get away with really short exposures, which means ZWO can make C-Star and sell lots of them, and people get online and say, my image is as good as yours, look, and it's taking 5 or 10 second exposures. And to some degree, they're right. If the sensor noise is low enough, you can get the same results from thousands of 10-second exposures that you could from hundreds of mini-minute exposures. And this isn't new. This is a CCD image with an 8300. So 8300 CCD was a very popular camera many years ago. It was also well known as one of the noisiest cameras you could buy. And this was a contest-winning image that I got with 30-second images at f4. F4 is very fast, so I had lots of signal. I also bend. When you bend a CCD camera, you got benefit from the electronics noise that you don't get from CMOS. And this principle has always been there. It's not anything new. There's always somebody about narrowband. Yeah, what about narrowband, Sonny? You need to go long. This works so much better indoors. These are 60-second hydrogen alpha images. And my early mentors were, man, you got to do like 15-minute exposure with hydrogen alpha to get any signal on the chip at all. And this was a long time ago. I can see this more. Yeah, this was a long time ago. Things have changed, right? The old timer in the back, if you're going, you need 15 minutes of HA, you don't need that anymore. You really don't. And this is an f7. It's not even a very fast optic. And 3 nanometers, so it's very narrow as well. And each individual exposure, when I stretch it, I couldn't see hardly anything. But when you stack all 162 of them, you're good to go. So, I would remind you that it used to take 20 minutes to get a picture of the moon. So imagine where we're going to be in 50 or 60 years on sensor technology. Who's tried out the image intensifiers that have been floating around? Teleview makes them. It's a whole different technology, right? It's a whole different experience. It's a whole different way of imaging. It has nothing to do with CMOS or CCD, and it's never going to be practical for astrophotography. Come back and talk to me in 30 years. I bet you it is. I know efforts are underway to use that for regular photography. So, yep, 20 minutes to get a picture of the moon. So where do we go from here? All right, we've got all of these things that are stacking things on the fly. So here's what I think. And this is my educated guesses, all right? So, you know, I'm not promising. But I don't think this is going to go away. Aperture has a lot of advantages. We get the spatial resolution. There's all sorts of things that experienced astrophotographers know that we get from big aperture. We want big aperture. We're going to want deep exposures for a lot of different types of targets, for a lot of different types of science. Some of us want to do serious science, not just make, I don't want to say it like that, not just make, there's nothing wrong with pretty pictures, nothing wrong with art. Neanderthal art is the essence of humanity. Don't ever say to me, it's just art. Art is wonderful and amazing. There's no such thing as it's just art. All right, sorry, I had to do that. But this is not going to go away. I don't think this is going to go away. People are still going to want to do astrophotography this way because there are advantages to this and the quality of the data and the images that you can get. Probably ever. I don't think it's ever going to go away. But just like we have tiers in photography, you know, you can shoot with your camera, with your phone now, right? And you can get really good images. Computational photography's come a long way for a cell phone. But people who want a little more control, they'll get a point and shoot camera. Now, I'm not going to lie, this market has really shrank because of this guy, because a lot of people, this is really all they needed, and they had to get this. But there's still a need for this. And there's still a need for this, a DSLR. I want to be able to change lenses. I need a fast lens. I'm doing wedding photography. I'm doing sports photography. It's the same as in astrophotography. I'm shooting the planets. I'm shooting deep sky. I'm shooting narrowband. I'm looking for satellites. I'm looking for asteroids. All of these things that we do in astrophotography are still going to need different types of equipment and different types of imaging setup. And just like in here, whatever your photographic needs are, one of these cameras is a better pair for you than the other. Now, it is shifting, but this is not going to go away. DSLRs are not going to go away. In the same sense, I think we're going to have the tiers. We're going to have these guys, C-Stars and Origin. I know a lot of people want Origin to be over here, but Origin is just a really expensive version of this that does it really, really well. But we're always going to have, this is a really great thing, but people are always going to want a more capable system that can go deeper and do more advanced things. I had another thought there. It must have been really important. I'll think of it. Or there'll be lots of questions and answers. But these tiers are not going to, I was going to say something about how many of you heard other people going, this is garbage. Their images are awful. I heard a lot of that in my local astronomy club. It's like these, poo-poo these little kitties with the stuff. This is one of the best things to happen to astrophotography in a long time. This is making astrophotography mainstream, all right? Anybody who failed science, who can't pay their bills in a web browser, can get one of these and get an image of a galaxy in their driveway first try, all right? And if you're mad about that, it's because you're jealous that it took you 30 years and $140,000 to be able to do that. But that's great. That's great. The more people who are interested in astrophotography, the more people might care about light pollution. Because trust me, nobody cares about light pollution but us and the people worried about the turtles. Most people, all they care about is it's bright and I feel safe. And we all know human nature. Feeling safe is always more important than being safe. So all your logical arguments are out the window. The only way to get people to, municipalities to cut down on light is to show them that they can save money. And that works. But telling them that they're losing the appreciation of the sky, I love you guys, but nobody cares but us. And that's why we're here and they're there. This might help with that, all right? Lots of people realizing what's over our heads. So I think this is fantastic. And it's pushing the envelope. And, ZWO has done a great thing. They've executed well on it, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. And I will always give them credit for that. But there's always going to be people in this room and myself who want something like this. I have a DSLR. Even if I go to the zoo, I bring my DSLR. I want to be able to change lenses, and I want to zoom in, and I want to do things. And I want to do lots of things that this thing won't do. And so I'm going to have that. All right. And now a word from our sponsor. There is a middle tier, I think. This is called Smart Eye. And this is a project that I've been working on with Pegasus Astro and Simulation Curriculum, the makers of Sky Safari, if you don't know who that is. And we basically took this and put it in an eyepiece. So there's a camera, a computer, and an image display, and you just look in and you see what you want. And it works really great. And you can come and see it all this week over there by, look for the Silver Airstream. Yeah, there's a bunch, we're set up over there. And it works with whatever telescope you already have. So it works with a much bigger optic. Yeah, wait, what is this? I just told you. The world's first smart eyepiece. It has a high quality camera. It's one of the reasons it costs so much. I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's a lot of money. It's not that much more than buying a 533 base cooled camera, really. It cools, which is important. It has an integrated imaging computer. a really high resolution display so you don't see pixelated images, and a focus diopter and all of that. And of course wireless control with Sky Safari. You can also use it, is it not on here or is it on the next slide? Yeah, okay, we'll just move on. You use it with the scope you have. You can also use it as a real astro camera. Not that it's not a real astro camera, but you can connect to it with Nina or the Sky and use it as a cool deep sky camera. So I can put this on my big telescope when I want to do stuff that's interesting to me, and I can put it on a small telescope when I want my wife to be interested, or when I'm set up at Starbucks and I want to do outreach and things. We have so many ideas for this, so many ideas. I think this is going to keep us busy for quite some time. And I'm not an ad writer, but I think that makes a good ad. Think outside the box. Because when I left Software Bisque, I can't tell you how many phone calls I got. Richard, so Fusion didn't go that great, but maybe we could do a box. Maybe you could help us do a box, and we'll do a little box. And I'm like, I really don't want to do a box. Well, oh man, you should do a box. I said, nope, I don't want to build a better dinosaur. I have something better in mind, and this was it. And Pegasus Astro and Simulation Curriculum, and I've been working on this for, well, 3 years. Pegasus for, how long have you guys been? It's 2 years now, right? Yeah, 2 years. They've been working on it. So I'm just going to put that back because I like that picture. Took that this morning. Questions?
Did that this morning? You have one of those here?
Yeah, we have 3 of them. And they work. And we can't promise that you won't say something foul in front of your children when you look through it. Last night we're like, maybe we should name it the OS eyepiece.
Where can we come to look?
Over by the vendor area, look for a silver Airstream and a banner that says Pegasus and a banner that says Simulation Curriculum. Yeah, we've got it on an 8-inch refractor. It's really awesome on the 8-inch refractor.
Is it going to work on a 10-inch refractor?
What's that?
Is it going to work on a 10-inch refractor?
Oh yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. Kevin.
So that picture that you posted of Omega Centauri, was that from last night?
Yes.
And how did you get that off of the?
I did this.
So you
'Cause-
just
I just held the phone up to it. So he's asking, I posted on social media a picture of Omega Centauri. There it is. Yeah, that ain't gonna work. It was a really nice picture of Omega Centauri, and I just held the phone up to the eyepiece and took a picture. There were lots of those. So look for hashtag SmartEye on social media. You'll find some pictures from the last couple nights. But you can ask questions about SmartEye, but you can also ask questions about the presentation. But we've got 7 minutes.
Are those pixels really not visible in the eyepiece?
I can't see them. Mathematically, you're not supposed to be able to see them. I believe you can't see them.
You believe
You
you
could
can?
probably see them if you take a microscope up to them.
No, just a regular.
Visual, no, you can.
Yeah. No. 4K, that big. Now there's a diopter, which what that means is you can't focus on a screen this far from your eye.
Yeah.
So there's an optic in there. And it does create a bit of a distortion effect. But in the middle, it's it's perfect. And you can kind of look around and it looks really great.
What's the diameter on these?
What's the diameter? It's a 2-inch barrel. John?
Can you capture images with that and send them to your laptop and stack them and do all that stuff?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And can you live stack with that?
The-
So when you look into the eyepiece, it's live stacking?
That's what it's doing.
Oh, it is?
We don't want to say live stacking because the muggles don't know what that means. We just want them to go, it's a magic eyepiece. Put it in your eyepiece, put it in your telescope, and wow. And actually, it starts in monochrome, so you get a black and white image, and the image brightens and cleans up, and turns into color. So there's not a lot of signal, so it's going to be really noisy if we just go, here's 5-second exposure. It's going to look awful. So it fades up, but it only takes a couple minutes, and it's a really quite nice image in just a couple minutes. And actually, we were looking live at Jupiter's Ghost, and like Jupiter's Ghost is just this little, it's a little round fuzzy spot, and it was shaped like an iris with a dot in the middle. It looked like a little eyeball, And that was in 1/10 of a second exposure. And so it was really incredible. I think you're going to see a lot of things with this that you've never seen. You're definitely going to see things you've never seen through an eyepiece before. And there's no astrophotography to learn. You just put it in your eye. You put it in. It works great on galaxies. All right, yeah, galaxies.
Can you put it in a Barlow?
Can you put? Well, if you put it in a Barlow, now what a Barlow does is it spreads the light out. So we recommend f7. So if you got an f4 and it's a 2x Barlow, you're at f8, you're probably okay. If you put it in a 10-inch Mac Cassegrain at f13 and you're up at f23, probably not, because there's not a lot of light coming in.
So would a telecentric Barlow help?
No, because you're still magnifying it. So when you magnify the light, it spreads it out. So even though it's telecentric, it's much less light coming in.
Do you need accurate tracking?
It actually works with an alt-az mount, as long as you can do 5 or 10 seconds, and it's adjustable. So if you've got a really nice mount, you can do up to 30-second exposures. If your mount's not that aligned, not that great, you can do 5-second exposures. And, yep.
Internal or external power supply?
External power, it's a USB-C, and it will cool. So you need a hefty USB-C power supply, but yeah, external. We thought about batteries. You'd be amazed the headache shipping a product with a battery in it. You know.
Are you selling them at the?
They will be available early Q2, so late April, early March. I mean May, early March. I'll get shot for that. What's that?
Can you pre-order?
Yes, Explore High Point Scientific, Agena Astro. Vendors, dealers are taking orders now. Get them before they're gone. Introductory pricing, we're going to charge twice as much, and no, we're not. They're $15.99. It is not. But you know what? Every time somebody goes, well, astrophotography is expensive, I go, I invite you to go boat shopping. And then shut the hell up. A boat. Yeah, go boat shopping.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Or go to Learning Hub.
Disney World.
Yeah.
Pissed off of those people.
All right.
What a ripoff. Okay.
Okay.
All set?
I'm done.
All right.
Give the cable back. Thank you.